Happy Friday. I'm gonna apologize ahead of time. I sound a little nasally, but I finally caught whatever my kiddos were running around with, and it's been a fun time here in cold Wisconsin. But we are doing episode 189 of Mavens and Manufacturing. I'm super excited because we have Parisa here. Hello, Parisa. How are you doing?
Hey, good. Thank you for having me today.
Yeah. So, Parisa, you are the inside sales and operations manager. Is it a manager or
And
just
no, just inside sales and operations.
of Phillips
Well,
Corporation? So, I want to learn more about you. So, one of the things, and we have a comment coming in already, which is super cool. Okay, so LinkedIn's being weird again. Who is this? Who's that person? Hi. Drop your name in the comments. If you're tuning in, make sure you drop your name, where you're tuning in from. If you have any questions or comments, feel free to drop those in. I lost track of what I was saying because my ADHD is high today. But no, we actually met through the LinkedIn group we're part of, Automation, the
yes.
ladies group, which is really cool. There's about, I don't even know how many are in there now, like over 25.
45.
Is it 45?
I saw the other day. It's an amazing group. I
Yeah.
love talking to the women in there.
It's pretty cool too because if you are ever interested in networking outside of a trade show, start a LinkedIn group with people that have common interests because it is really, really helpful. Oh, it's Misty. Hi, Misty. Thanks for tuning in. But yeah, I want to learn a little bit more about you because you have an interesting story. You kind of joined this sector later on in life. So what is your background? Like, what were you doing before engineering and manufacturing?
So it's a bit of a winding path, to be honest. I started out with legal. I worked in the equine industry. And then my previous role was I was a retail book, if you gives that away, the book's behind me, district manager for 7 years before a little thing came along called COVID. And with COVID, brick and mortar, we just got hit so hard. We were laying people off, closing stores. Some of the major retailers like Pier 1, JCPenney, all of them were shutting their doors. So, of course, a year later, I found myself unemployed, laid off, and they closed the business. And I was just like, what now? What am I going to do? I've got probably 30 years left on the job market. I don't want to go through this again if I can avoid it. So I started looking at careers that had the long-term longevity and consistency. And my dad at the time was sending me job links. He's a manufacturing engineer, so they were all in manufacturing. So it's kind of like, manufacturing's always been around. It's still going to be around in 30 years. So I'm going to start looking into manufacturing jobs.
So how did you set yourself up for that though? Because like I never expected to be in this sector ever. And I went to school for writing and I was a single mom at the time. And it's like, okay, creative writing's definitely not going to pay the bills because I'm not like, a Patterson or what's the woman that wrote the Harry Potter? I'm not her. So yeah, so I found out about tech writing and that's how I got into this sector, and it was completely by accident, not intentional at all. So were you like nervous at all that you weren't going to have the appropriate skill set or anything to really be successful in this sector? Because it's really technical and it's got a lot of different things to it. It's very broad.
Absolutely. In fact, when my dad first started sending me like job links or trying to push me, which of course, he's wanted me to be an engineer since I was a kid. And I was like, math.
Yeah.
Like I don't really like math. I like history and political science and those things. So I was nervous. And especially because you look at a lot of job postings and they're all like, we want you to have 10 years industry experience. And it's like, okay. So, luckily there's a couple out there that I would get excited. You would see, we want you to have 10 years, say sales, and then preferably in the industry. And those were the ones I was like, okay, that's reasonable because if you do the cumulative, for example, I have 19 years of sales experience, but I didn't have the industry experience at the time. It's all about learning the product. And so I knew I could do it. It was more about getting the opportunity. Of course, you don't want me programming your CNC machines or pushing any of the buttons. I'm not at that point yet. But I am learning. I've learned a lot actually in the last few years.
So did you start out at Phillips Corporation or were you somewhere before you landed there?
No, this was my first position in the industry. And I'm really grateful for Phillips. And then actually a friend of mine had just started working here about a couple months before saw that there was a sales opening. She's like, Parisa could do that. She sent it to me, and I was, put me forward to do an interview. And I was grateful that they gave me a chance, because when I interviewed with my boss at the time, Jason McCurdy, we were talking, and he came from a retail sales background. And I was like, yeah, it's been so hard because people say retail. And I'm like, ooh, retail. And I'm like, if you're a retail manager, I was essentially managing 15 businesses. I had 65 people in my department. You're doing everything, the marketing, the sales management, the operational management. You're doing all of the rollouts. So you're working with IT. There's a lot of skills in there. And so he saw the value in that. It was like, I can teach you the robots. You've already got the experience for everything else. And the fact that he gave me a chance meant so much. And that's what allowed me to step a foot into this industry.
That's really cool. Well, can you tell us a little bit about Phillips Corporation for anyone tuning in who might not know what you guys do? Like what's your main bread and butter? What do you guys do?
Absolutely. So Phillips Corporation it's actually a Haas factory outlet. We're in 12 states. So it started out with the Haas product line. We work very closely with Haas. So if anyone, I'm sure they're familiar with those CNC machines. So then they started looking at additional machine tending solutions. One of those ended up being robotics. So we work with Universal Robots. We sometimes work with Manic, and we have a lot of robot solutions. We've also expanded into additive. We've got several additive divisions, like our Mark Forge line, engineered products, Absolute Tooling. So we've really expanded our base. So if you get a chance, definitely look at Phillips Corp, the website, if you're at all interested in the machine tending world. We also even have a completely division dedicated to federal. So and I still need to learn more about what they do, but I've been mostly focused in robotics. I work in the robotics department.
That sounds like a fun time. Like I know enough to be dangerous about robotics. I think I went to Virginia at a tech school, and they let me play with one of the Fanuc robots there. It was much smaller scale, but it was really super fun. And one of the interesting things that someone said at a trade show that I was at, they're like, it's the gamification of technology, which I think is really relatable to the younger generations. Like, and with my kids, especially because they're always on their Switch or their iPad a lot of the times, they know already how to like drop and play something. One of the biggest games they play is that Minesweeper or Minecraft game, Minecraft. And I'm just like, I don't know what you're doing. And they're like, it's so easy. And I'm like, not to me. So I think it's interesting how we're seeing that connection. But when you first started at Phillips and made this career change, what were some of like your biggest challenges that you faced, and how did you overcome those?
So I would say probably the biggest challenging is putting your ego aside, because I had reached the top ladder in a way. I was actually training to be our director of stores. My boss was getting close to retirement. That was kind of in the talks before the business was sold and closed. And so you go from essentially being like in the C-suite and being at the top, and you're in a new industry. You're the new kid. I honestly didn't know what a CNC machine was on my first day. I was like, what is this? So I didn't know anything. And you have to kind of start all over and rebuild that foundation of a new career. And so it's hard some days. You kind of have to put your ego aside and be like, oh man, I used to do this and I used to manage this, but that's not what I'm doing now. I need to learn. I need to ask questions, being open to being teachable. I luckily had an amazing mentor. His name's Ron Halpine, and he took me under his wing, and he was just so kind about it. He didn't make fun of my questions. He was patient, and and really all of our engineers on our team, I will say, they've been phenomenal about helping me. And they'll have our application team will have like this whole chat, and they'll just get really technical with the things that they're talking about. And I'll kind of glance. I'm like, I really don't know what's going on. And so every now and then I'll message like one of them on the side. I'm like, what's a whips? Like, can you walk me through this? Like, I want to know more.
Yeah.
Or I'm at the same time in Google, like Googling terms to learn. So I've learned those things along the way, but it's taken, putting my ego aside, asking questions, and then having a team that is supportive with helping me.
That's awesome. I think it's interesting how you mentioned putting your ego aside, because I feel like I think you made a good point. You have to be open to be teachable, because we're changing so fast, like every single day. There's always like new technologies and stuff. And if you just get comfortable you're never going to grow or advance in your career. But it reminded me of, so I'm a big CrossFitter,
Okay.
and I used to be really strong and like lift a lot of weight. And then I had my two boys, and I'm still struggling trying to get back to where that is. And it's really humbling to like go in and everybody's like surpassing you. And it's just like, I
Yeah.
just want to get back to the weight I was lifting before. We have Teresa Parsons on here. She says determination. Yes, determination. So what is it about robotics that you like so much that makes it really easy for you to like connect with people and help with the sales process at Phillips? Like, what is it about them that attracts you?
So I'm a little bit nerdy, if you can't tell by all the books. So I've always kind of like progress and technology, and that's why when I was like, what's going to be around in 30 years, what is the job market going to look like, I'm tired of trying to stay viable, I want to get ahead of it. And I was like, 30 years robotics is going to be in so many places, so is added in the technology. So I was really drawn to kind of the new technology and learning it. And so it was really exciting to kind of just see what they've managed to do and how it's changing. And I really geeked out the first time I got to get my hands on like the UR Teach pendant. And I think I was maybe like a month or two in, and I got to do my first like pick and place sequence. And like you said, if for students, and I've mentioned this when I've done some classes with students, is it's very app based. So if you're familiar with an app or you're used to those kind of technologies, like that was so much easier for me to learn. I still, after 2 years, I watched the guys programming and cutting parts in the CNC machine, and I'm still very overwhelmed by the macros and the numbers, and they're just brilliant what they can do with those machines. Whereas, with the robotics, it's just so much more intuitive and easy for me, coming from someone who's more used to like computers and working kind of with a little bit newer technology. So I find those to be much easier.
Mm-hmm. So what sort of skill sets from your previous job? And 1 second, we're getting interrupted here. Can I help
Okay.
you? Hi.
Hi.
Can you what?
Gotta go outside.
No, you have an ear infection, so you can't go outside. But I'm on a call.
I will bundle up.
For a little bit then. You need to bundle up real good. Okay. I love you. Please shut the door. Please shut the door. You're going to say bye? Say bye.
Hi. I love your shirt.
And that's being a mom at home when your kid is sick. What sort of skill sets from your previous job do you think you brought into your current job at Phillips Corporation? Because you did mention, before you had some similarities in the skill sets that you transferred over. So what can you call out some of those transferable skills?
Absolutely. So definitely, obviously, like I said, I have 19 years customer service experience. I also about 8 years of project management, operational management for actually about 10 years worth. Um, I've used so many different like CRM programs. So when I was starting, they were really concerned about that. I was like, I've been on 3 other ones. Once you kind of learn how programs work, it's pretty easy to learn the features of a new one. So those things, forecasting, budgeting, all of that has really played in. I also, because I have a little bit of legal background, that would help if they needed a little extra help reading contracts or maybe drafting some of our terms or agreement. We were looking over that with my previous boss. I would work with him on those. So all of those skills do transfer. And that's why I do wish more jobs in their job listing would consider transferable skills over just industry experience. Because yes, obviously industry's experience is important, especially if you're an engineer and you're working on something technical. But for the more maybe business or office roles, a lot of those skills are kind of the same across different industries. And you're also learning different ways that things work. And so you can bring in maybe a different perspective that hasn't been used yet because another company was using it in another industry and it worked.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point. That's like a really good argument too for why companies should look at other types of individuals. So like veterans would be a really good pool to pull from if you're trying to fill up your workforce. Retired athletes or former athletes who didn't have a plan after they got done playing their sport, because what's the retirement age for like most sports? I don't want to assume here, but I think it's like maybe mid 40s. Yeah. Which you're still young. You could do a lot of stuff mid 40s.
Jason Kelsey, I think he's like early 40s. So Yeah, they got to retire early.
I mean, I'm not making that much money like he is, but we got Lasagna on here. Parisa, you are an amazing, beautiful woman. I believe you can do this. And then I'm sure it was a challenge going into a man's world. Great job. We should talk about that. And then mention your law degree, woman. I'm assuming that's Misty. And then we have, I'm going to mess up your name. Is it Sir Hill? What's going on? If I messed up your name, I'm sorry. Put the photonic sound in the comments and I'll say it correctly. But were you intimidated? Because retail does tend to be more women heavy. I worked at the Buckle a long time ago, and it was mostly women in that space. But were you intimidated at all when you first came into manufacturing? And was that the situation for you? Like, were there more men than women in your situation?
I wasn't at first, just because when I was in the equine industry and sometimes with law, there is more men than women. So I have had a little bit of that experience. But what I didn't realize was how lonely I was for female companionship in the workplace, because I am the only woman on my team. And though the guys are great, I am still the only woman. Our sales division is more predominantly male. So it was more of, women, we just kind of have a different communication style. And I kind of was just more missing that interaction. So it wasn't so much that it was an issue working with men. And like I said, they've been supportive, but it was just more, you feel a little lonely. And so that's why when I got on LinkedIn, I started really networking with other women in the industry. And I got to join the Women Automation Group, and that really fit that need for me. I feel like now I have women in the space that I can kind of talk to, and, I can use all my emojis and my chats. They can be a little longer than I would normally do in my other chats. And so it really kind of fit that need. So I think it doesn't even have to be your specific workplace. If you can find people in the industry, you can still make that work for you. And that really helped.
But I think that's a good point that you were making about, we just communicate with each other a little bit differently. And there's nothing wrong with that. Like, I remember working at a company and I was pregnant, and thank God for my coworker Crystal, because I could vent to her about the stuff that I was going through, because I was like, no guy wants to hear me complain about the issues I have right now with my pregnancy. Like, they don't want to hear about that. So I think that's a really good point, that it just helps you be able to get things off your chest. And then you can also exchange like thoughts and experiences and get good tips on how to handle that sort of thing too. So love the automation ladies group that we're a part on LinkedIn. And I think we definitely need to like find a way to create some sort of event where all of us can meet. I'm pitching for Ireland because that's where Vanessa is, and I want to go to Ireland. Really bad.
Bucket list. Please include me in the invite.
Yeah.
I have vacation days saved up. I will be there.
We definitely have to get that going. So what do you think makes manufacturing a really exciting field for someone who might be considering making a career change? Because when, you didn't really have a choice when layoffs were happening in your company. And one of the points you made earlier on in the conversation is that, manufacturing has been here, it's still here, and it's always going to be here. And we've had like our ups and downs, but there's so many opportunities available now. Like, if you were to get let go, you could probably easily find another place to go. So what is it about manufacturing that makes it really exciting for you and enjoy coming to work every day?
So I will say, probably it's my change in perspective since working in manufacturing. You don't realize how much of our life is manufactured. Everything that we have, these shelves, somebody had to design it. Somebody had to put that out there. They had to cut the parts. They had to create the bolts. And was it made at the same place? And then it has to go to a retailer, and then it goes to your house, and then you install it. And so everything, like I was thinking about my washing machine once. I was doing laundry, and I was just sitting there, this has probably been through like 15 different stages to get to my door. And that's not something I would have really honestly spent much time thinking about before, but now it's kind of given me a new appreciation for all of the things that we have in life and the things that manufacturing can and does do. And I'm excited to see kind of where it comes in the future. For example, we're in machine tending robots, but like the humanoid robots, like those are being manufactured, like those are being designed somewhere. And so you can I think really the potential to create is limitless when it comes to manufacturing. And that's really exciting to me. Cause it's like, well, what are we going to make next? What's going to be in our market in the next 10 to 20 years that somebody created and designed and built. And I like that. I think it's interesting.
I can't remember who made the post on LinkedIn, but they shared a post about Sony starting to look into concepts for flying cars. And the picture that they shared, it literally looked like a badass Batmobile. And I'm like a comic nerd. So I was like, I think it's just the concept of it, but to see. And I don't know if I'm aging myself by bringing up Back to the Future, the movie, but like I always loved that movie because they had the self-lacing Nike shoes, they had the flying cars, they had the hoverboards. It's really amazing to see like some of these sci-fi movies that came out back then, like the technology is becoming a reality. And
I mean, I saw a DeLorean driving on the freeway like a couple weeks ago.
I would have freaked out. I would have probably gotten an accident trying to get a picture of that. We have Rocky. He said Parisa has a driver and very excellent planner and is not intimidated by industry. She can do any job in any industry. And then, that's Missy. She's saying 100%. And then Lasonia, Rocky, I completely agree with you. She hasn't even mentioned her skills in the political field. She can and has always done anything she's put her mind to. Do you want to talk about Judy Jetson? Yes, that's awesome. Do you want to talk about your skill set in the political field?
I think we should maybe stay away from that topic right now. But I think they mean probably a little bit more the law, just because I have a law degree, and so that's why I find like kind of those interesting. And one thing I went, like you said, we don't want to tell our ages on the internet, but it's been a while since I graduated. But when I went to law school at the time, it was a lot to do with, I was studying criminal law and I worked at PD's office, and that was really fascinating. But I was like, I don't know if I really want to work with prisoners for the next 20 years. So I was like, and I want to travel and have some of those experiences. But now it's like, if I went back to law school today, I would so look into how it's going to impact AI and robotics. I mean, because the law moves very, very slow. So even though, we're advancing in manufacturing, these things are being created. I remember, this is really going to tell my age, but Facebook came out when I was in law school. So
we're the same age.
Okay. So part of the practicum was, how is this going to be applied? And I remember the judges were trying to figure out, can we admit people's Facebook pages or can we not? And they were having to figure that out. So now with all this new technology, there's going to have to be some changes, and the law is going to have to change and catch up with it. So I think it's going to be a really interesting time, not just for people who are in like robotics and those more advanced machining industries, but also for like the lawyers and legislatures. They're going to have to figure that out as well. So it's, I don't know. I think it's kind of an exciting time on both sides. I've kind of been watching and seeing what's coming through.
Yeah. I'm interested in seeing it too, because there's a lot of AI tools and platforms being used to create technical documentation, and that kind of makes me nervous just because I have massive trust issues. So it's like, well, if you don't have that human element double checking the information, how do you know it's correct versus not correct? And then the other thing that creeps me out is all these filters and tools that they're using to like put other people's faces on things, and they're creating like videos. And the trouble there is that some people are actually thinking these videos are real, like it's the actual person but if you're part of the industry, you can catch that, no, that's completely artificial intelligence. They're just creating a joke out of it. So it's really interesting to see like that kind of advancement, but I'm questioning, okay, so how are we going to be protected so that this stuff doesn't get used maliciously? And so yeah, I'd be interested. So do you still follow up then on some of that reading and stuff with law and how it's being applied with technology or working with technology? Do you still read into that kind of stuff?
I do a little bit, just kind of on the side, or if I see like articles or things come up on LinkedIn, I really dig into it. And I have a lot of friends who are lawyers, and none of them are really in the tech space. So but I keep telling some of them, I'm like, you need to do a little bit of that. And, I've looked some into like compliance laws, and I think those things are really interesting. So I don't know. Like, to me, it sounds fun to see kind of what's going to happen, but I know most people would probably like, that is not fun or normal that you find that interesting.
I mean, I personally couldn't be the person that does it, but I like reading about that stuff just because I think I give a lot of credit for people who can do that amount of massive research and then put something together that really turns into law or a standard or some sort of compliance, because I don't think you have to have that type of passion for it, I think, to keep up with it. But it's really interesting. Robotics, one love. And then Teresa, it's scary what some of these bad actors are doing with social media. Yeah, I've been using the unfollow and block button a lot recently on my social media. So Parisa, what's what are you looking forward to in the future? Like, what are some of the trends that you're noticing, and what are you getting really excited about? Is there anything that Phillips is working on that you can mention that's not like proprietary information yet, or anything that you guys are about to release or showcase?
I'm not really sure on that. I know we have some stuff coming through from federal, but that's the thing. I don't know. So definitely follow our Phillips Federal page. They have some really interesting things that they're rolling out working, but I don't know if what I know is public domain. So I'll just pass on that one. But there's some really interesting things. But we have some great product lines. I loved watching what our Mark Forge team is doing. And of course, we've got the robots, which are really interesting, and what we're working on. So I think one of the things that kind of makes Phillips unique, and that I love learning about, is that we're an integrator as well. Like, so we really walk our customers from the start to where they're cutting parts, and with training. And so we don't just say, here's your robot. It's what's a good package for you, what's going to work for you. And then we work that through with the client, which kind of robot is the best fit. And then we walk them through how that's going to work to do what they need. And then there's the application feature of it. We go in, we integrate it, we install it, and then we offer training so that hopefully whoever we leave a robot with, they know how to operate it, they're comfortable with it. And then they can always have us come back in if for continued training, because, production changes, your process will change. And if you feel like you need help changing it out, like, we stay with our customers. And that's one thing I really find really interesting. I love seeing what our application team is doing and what they're working on. I mean, they're pretty smart. So they're a pretty smart group of guys, and I've learned a lot from them. So, and I think that's, for me, I'm still at a stage, it's learning more and learning about the industry, and then seeing what's out there. I would love to learn more about some of the other, because like I said, we're machine tending robots, but there's so many coming out. I could follow Aaron Panther and the A3 Association. I like seeing what kind of robots Jessica Chavez, like, she's always sharing the humanoid robots. Yeah. So I'm really interested in just learning about robots in general and the different kinds of applications they can use for.
If you're not subscribed to Aaron's newsletter, subscribe to that. He has the coolest job, I think, ever created.
Memes, for sure. I love all his memes that he shares.
Oh, yeah. But he has the opportunity through the ASTM to really travel all over the world and see how different places are using robotics, but also he gets a sneak peek at like what's up and coming. And I think he has a lot of secrets too, because there's some things that just haven't been released yet, or there's not a standard or a compliance for it, and he gets to see a lot of that firsthand. I don't know how he does it, because I get so excited when something new comes out. Like, I tell a lot of people, so I would probably not be the best person for his position, but and if you just sit down and talk to him, you just learn so much. Like, he has so much knowledge going through his mind, and he has the coolest job ever, I think.
That's awesome. You have the dream just to travel the world and get to meet all the different, manufacturers and see what they're working on. I love following both of them and seeing what people are making and what's out there, because that's the thing with manufacturing. It's such a broad industry, and there's so many different elements and different things that people make. And I remember I went to a facility several years ago, and like, they were just making the plane seats, and that was kind of eye-opening for me. I was like, so you just make the plane seats? Like, I was probably in my mid-20s. I just assumed they were all made in one place. And it was like, no, we make the seats and then we ship it, and then I've been to other facilities and they make the body and the application. And so it's also really interesting when things are made in different areas and how, that's where you kind of get your trade compliance and how their supply chain. So there's just so many different areas that roll into it that are fascinating. And I think that's why, kind of going back to our point for manufacturers, if you're having trouble filling jobs, maybe, obviously with the engineers, you need a technical, but if it's a job that doesn't necessarily need a technical degree, maybe consider some people who have similar skill set. That's where you can find more workers, and they're going to be, like me, grateful for that opportunity to try a new industry, because it's really hard to get a foot in the door sometimes if you didn't start in one.
Yeah. And I think the other thing too to consider is some people are just really good at adapting and learning things quickly. So as long as they have that strong work ethic and their core values match up with the company's core values, you can get a really good employee out of someone that might not have been considered before for this type of industry. One of the other things that, like, with manufacturing all over the world, I think one interesting thing is to see how sometimes where you're at, the culture, how that bleeds into what everybody's doing in manufacturing. And my friend Drew Crow, he's doing something really interesting with the new manufacturing renaissance store. He's kind of bringing that hip hop culture into it to really talk about it. And it's just really fun and engaging to see how he gets kids really excited about what we're doing in this industry. So with your mentors, what sort of advice would you give companies in terms of providing that mentorship for somebody who, like you, who came out from a different industry? What advice would you give other companies around mentorship and the importance of really getting employees engaged and wanting to learn new things so that they can be that best employee for their company?
Absolutely. I was a big believer in mentorship at my old company. I established a mentorship program because I would try to, if I had a new manager that I had just trained, I, as a supervisor, may not have time to continue that training or spend as much time with them. So what I would do is partner them with someone who was in a similar market with a similar size store that they were managing, and I felt like their personalities would match. I'm like, that's a good. So I think it also goes into kind of pairing the mentorship, finding someone who's going to be compatible with your new hire. But if you don't have like a big training program or where you're going to send people out, that mentorship program is very important, because also if you're a new hire, I didn't want to maybe message my boss, not that he wasn't approachable, but with every little question, because I knew he was busy. So it's more comfortable to go to, say, a colleague and say, hey, what is this? Like, can you walk me through that? And then being able to explain that. So it's really important, and it kind of helps you, I think, move into the role, and they have the industry experience. So, I think that's where maybe some companies are worried about spending a lot of time training someone new. But like you said, if it's someone who's adaptable, they've shown in their resume they can adapt. It's really about just having someone available to them when they have a question, because that question may take 5 minutes, but then they can move on with the day and get a task done. But if they're having to wait like a week to get a reply, then obviously it's going to take longer. So being available is also, it's a big part of it. And I know that can be hard with busy schedules, but I was lucky, Ron, as much as he had his plate, he always took the time to help me. And he ended up retiring a few months later. And I was like, no, you can't leave me. I'm going to tape you to a chair. But we stayed in touch, and we would still talk. I think at the time we were still talking probably like once a week, and then we went like once a month. So we've stayed friends and connect, and I still call him from time to time. So he just had a really big impact on what it was like for me, going into Phillips and going into the industry and learning. And so I hope that everybody, whether it's a new student getting a new job or, somebody doing career transfer, can find that mentor, because it makes such a big difference.
Yeah. So this is going to be a two-part question. One for the manufacturing side, and then one just kind of your personal advice. But how can manufacturers better attract and support professionals who are looking to make that midlife career change? Because I feel like that's kind of twofold, where anybody who might have been doing something for 20 some years and then they're finally just, oh, I don't want to do this anymore. Or like in your situation where you got laid off and you're questioning, okay, where can I go where it's going to be more consistent and not have these major ebb and flows where I'm going to have to look for another job soon. I feel like there's a misconception that once you hit a certain age, then it's too late for you to change your mind or change your trajectory. So how can manufacturers really like overcome that misconception and start pulling in, not just considering the younger generations, but someone that's part of our generation? How can they really appeal to them so that they consider coming through their doors to work?
So one thing I remember when I was looking that made a big difference is if I was looking at companies that had like a general interest position where you could apply. It wasn't a specific position, because sometimes it's a little hard with that, because job titles you may have the same job as somebody, but they have a different job title. So job titles are not really very reflective all the time of what you're actually doing day to day. And then also, like I said, with a lot of the jobs, it's like, oh, you have to have 10 years of engineering experience. But it's like, but if they're not an actual engineer, do they really need 10 years of engineering experience, or do you need to have 10 years of business experience with the engineering preferred? So maybe really think about what, I know they're trying to put everything in a listing and as much as possible, but you might be turning people away that would have those compatible skills. So I loved when I would see ones that would say something like, 10 years of business experience, preferred in engineering, but we'll consider it cumulative or something along those lines. So those were kind of the jobs because for most people looking for jobs, you don't really want to waste your time applying for something you're never going to call back from. And it's so hard now anyways. And then I think, finding out where, career fairs and being active, which I think a lot of companies are, but I think a lot of it just comes down to how they're having people apply, because it's gotten so hard in this market. And I know when I was laid off, I applied to about 500 jobs, all of which I was either qualified or overqualified. The only interviews I got were from ones where I had referrals. So there's definitely something there where I don't know, maybe before COVID, when there was a lot of people looking for jobs, they had such tight and complex computer knocking people out, and that would be a thing. I would go through a whole process, do like a little quiz, and it was like, but do you have that 10 years of engineering? And it would be a button. And if I said, I didn't want to lie, so I would put no, that probably automatically would throw out my resume, and I just wasted time. And so I kind of learned to stop doing that. And so I think there should probably be an evaluation of how people are hiring. That might be because I always hear, oh, people don't work. There's not enough people out there. And I was like, but I was out there looking for 8 months. I looked for 8 because I was making a career change. If I'd went back to my old career, yes, it would have been a lot quicker and easier, but I wanted to do something different. So it took longer. But I have another friend who's been looking for a job for almost a year, and she's got a lot of experience, and so many people that are like that. So I feel like there's definitely a disconnect there. And hopefully some conversations can be made around that between people who are hiring, but people who are looking. Like, we got to be able to find each other. I would love to have like an app that's like, swipe right. This is the job you want, or swipe left. Like, let's do something along those lines.
The online job dating app.
Yes.
That would be awesome. No. Well, and I think that's a good point though. Like, there's a lot of like unnecessary stuff going on in that whole process. So like some of the jobs that are available on LinkedIn, I was looking through them because I wanted to see how many people are starting to put their salary range on there. Because I feel like that's a big filtering process. So like if you immediately put your salary range on there, you're going to automatically filter down the people that want that specific job because they know in their mind what their low and high point are for their salary range. So I think that's like, and it still boggles my mind that not everybody's doing that. Like, I always tell people if they don't have their salary range posted, don't apply for that job because they're most likely going to have you decide what it is. And then a lot of us tend to undervalue what we're actually worth. So we get paid less automatically right there. So it's like, if you have a number, make sure you look for those jobs, make sure they have that salary range. And then with the statistic where men apply for jobs where they feel 60% comfortable, and then we as women have to be 100% comfortable, we definitely need to like be okay applying for something we're 60% comfortable with and not overthink if we don't have one or two of the qualifications. So I should talk to Anne and see like what are some of the new trends coming up in recruiting that help people find a new job. But yeah, I'm seeing a lot of people go on LinkedIn and have that thing open for work, and they're finding jobs fairly quickly by just word of mouth and referrals. So it's interesting to see
LinkedIn is
that.
a good source, and networking. I mean, that's really that's what worked for me. That was really the only thing that worked for me was networking and pulling on my network. And so it's really important. And so I have a lot of friends that if they're thinking about getting close to making a career change, I've already told them, I was like, start getting on LinkedIn and meet the people in the area that you're wanting to go and see kind of what's out there. And that's kind of what I had slowly started doing a little bit when I was looking, but I wish I had done more, while I was laid off so that I could make those connections, and it really does make a big difference. But luckily I had some great local friends. Like I said, it was a friend that introduced me to Phillips, and really appreciated that. So she came through for me for sure.
Well, let's say we have a bunch of people tuning in and some of them are looking to change their career. What sort of advice would you give to them in the top reasons why they should consider manufacturing to be the place they change their career?
So I would say go for it. It is scary. It's not going to be easy at first, but you can always go back. And that's thing, your old career, I think of it like you've already built a house. Like you've built a house in your old career. You've probably gotten to the top. So it's done. Like what's next? And unless you've got more steps to go, let's build a new house. And so you can build a new house in a new industry. You're going to have to start at the bottom with the foundation and work your way up, make your new contacts, learn what you're doing, but you're learning new skills along the way. Maybe your first house was a cottage and now this new one's a 3-bedroom mansion. Like, what are you trying to build? Where do you want to go with it? And I mean, obviously manufacturing is a good place to build something. But it's such a, like I said, if you're looking for something that has the longevity, especially, I really want to put this out there for people that are maybe in an industry that is struggling, because there are some industries that may not continue over the next 30 years, or they're going to be very oversaturated and be tough. And that's why I was like, I've got to find something different. Look at manufacturing. We're a consumer society. We're never not going to need things manufactured. We like our luxuries. And as we progress in technology, we like more luxuries. I would love to have a robot butler. That would be a dream. So think about, it's a solid location to go, and what do you want to do with it? And that's why I knew I wanted to do something kind of more on the tech end of things. And that's why the robots appealed to me, automation, like I said, maybe additive, like some of those areas, because that's a little bit more in my interest. And so falling in the areas that appeal to you, but definitely I would say to consider it. You don't, I always like to say, and this is maybe a sales quote, but you miss all the shots you don't take. Take a shot.
You do though.
And nothing is permanent. So if you 5 years in, but not encouraging people to do that, but it's you've already built that previous career. Go try something new while you can, if you're in a position to do that. And, hopefully there's some resources. And if anyone has any questions or just wants to talk through like the stress of making a life change, they're welcome to reach out to me on LinkedIn, because I've been there. It was a tough year. I had never been laid off before. I'm my own source of income, and I was stressed out. My family knows. And at the same time, it was like, but I want to do something new. This is the time to make a change. So it forced me. I wish I had done it. But see, I wish I had done it before I was laid off. And that's where I waited too long. So don't wait so long. If you already know you're in an area that's struggling, start planning for the next step and see what that is for you. And so I just think there's a ton of opportunities in manufacturing, and it's not oversaturated like a lot of other places.
Yeah. And the end result is always helping someone else out achieve something or overcome a challenge. And that's why I really like being in this sector, because there's so much good being done with manufacturing and the creativity that everybody brings to it. So it's never a dull moment. It's absolutely a fun place to be. But I liked your comment about, being stressed out. One of the pieces of advice that I got a long time ago is like, if you're not stressed out, you're not on the right path. So like, if you're not a little bit scared, I mean, being scared and afraid of something also means maybe you're on the path of growth. So don't be afraid to step outside that comfort zone. So I don't know. You just gotta follow your path and pursue it as. Well, Parisa, is there anything else that you would like to mention or talk about before I let you go here? Like, this was a really fun conversation, and I think you're gonna inspire a lot of people who might not be liking where they're at right now, and inspire them to at least think about maybe jumping on the manufacturing wagon and pursuing a career here with us. Is there anything else that you would like to chat about before I let you go?
I know I think we covered a good area, but yeah, just hopefully this will encourage someone to just make that change, give it a try. And, like I said, the industry, it's so vast, so that it's not limited to just doing one thing. So if, figure out kind of what appeals to you and see what's out there. And then if you're interested, start building your network, start connecting with people. I'm on LinkedIn. I'm pretty active on there. So I'm open to any connections if people want to chat, and, and there's some great groups, like you said, join the groups, and that way, some people want to put their feet in the water slowly. So, maybe see what's in the industry, start following companies that you are interested in, see what they're doing. And that way you can kind of think about it, but don't. Change is scary. I will admit I am scared of change sometimes, but it's the only way you grow. And I have learned and grown so much. Like, I didn't know anything about CNC machines and robotics other than what I had seen in movies 2 years ago. And then within 8 months, I was giving presentations on robot applications to engineering professors. So you will learn, you got to be willing to put in the work and all of that.
Yeah.
But I'll leave on this. I was having a conversation with a customer the other day, and I had to mentally stop for a minute. And I was like, look at you. You have learned so much in my head. Because I was like, I couldn't have had this conversation a year ago. Like, I would have been like, I need some help. Where's an engineer? Come answer these questions. So it kind of was like a light bulb moment of like, I have learned so much, and I love that. I love learning. And so, I think people might surprise themselves if they get that push to try something different.
That's awesome. I love that little pep talk. Like, look at you. I'm doing it. I'm getting it. Rocky said even some of the engineering job descriptions are ridiculous. Some have 3 pages, and then at the end they say this is not meant to be an exhausting description. Are you kidding me? I lost interest at the end of the first page and forget about this one. I would have not, like, I have no thanks. I don't want that job. If it's worth doing, it's worth overdoing. Yes, Misty, absolutely. So, great conversation. Thank you. Thank you for joining us, Teresa. I do want to shout out to Misty. She's helping me with a really cool project that we're going to be revealing at Automate. So, it does involve patches, embroidered patches. So if you are looking to spice up your branding and do something really creative for your swag or giveaways at trade shows and stuff, contact Misty, because she is truly an artist, and the whole textile industry kind of disappeared from the United States, and what she's doing, I think, is making it really popular. So hopefully we can encourage people to bring that back. It's awesome. So we'll have more videos and pictures of that. But Parisa, what is the quickest way for people to connect with you if they have any questions or want to have a conversation with you?
I would say LinkedIn. I'm pretty active on there. So that would probably be the easiest.
Awesome. Well, Parisa, thank you so much for joining me today on Mavens of Manufacturing. I hope to run into you at an upcoming trade show, or hopefully we can come together for an automation ladies event. I think that would be a lot of fun. For anyone tuning in, be sure that you subscribe to the Mavens of Manufacturing YouTube channel. We have interviewed over 189 guests in the engineering and manufacturing field. So if you want to catch up on some of those stories, that's the place to go get them. You can also follow me on LinkedIn. And then if you are having a hard time adding some spice to your merch, I have Fresh Horizons as our sponsor today. Stay tuned. I have a message coming from them in just a couple seconds. Bye, everyone. Have a great weekend. This episode of Mavens has been sponsored by Fresh Horizons Group. Fresh Horizons Group is a family-run company that was founded on the premise of helping organizations and businesses better tell their story through high-quality branded apparel and promotional items. Freshen up your brand by contacting Fresh Horizons today at freshhorizonsgroup.com.